What's up? It's your BibaGirrrl again. I hope you had a good week. This is my usual Friday video. As you can see, I've got my Invisalign in, and it's a new tray this week, so it's a little tight. But hanging in there with it. I was just going over like everything that's happened to me this past year since last February, and it's just been crazy. And it's sort of been like it's not one thing, it's another. One thing will get cleared up, and then something else will happen, and it's just been really crazy. But today I'm feeling good, and so I've got lots of stuff to talk about. But I just want to say, please hit thumbs up on this video if you're watching it on YouTube. Please share it with your friends, and wherever you share videos, Facebook, Snapchat, Twitter, Instagram, and please, hit subscribe and follow me. I'm on. I have my BibaGirrrl Facebook page. I am at BibaGirrrl on Twitter, at BibaGirrrl on Instagram. I'm BibaGirrrl on SoundCloud. I was having an issue with the SoundCloud because SoundCloud has a limit to how many voice things you can post. And I actually had to delete some of my older ones. I actually hid some so that new things could be posted. And if they're hidden, that means no one can see them or listen to them anyway. So I had to delete some of the older ones. And but if you're following me there, then you pretty much are staying up to date. And what I may do, I actually went through some of my older things that I had posted there and kind of wrote down some notes of things that are still valid and things that are still important. I've been sort of alternating, sometimes posting on SoundCloud, sometimes posting videos. So some information on the SoundCloud might be a little different on the SoundCloud as it is on the YouTube channel or the Facebook. When I post a video to Facebook. Because it's not a visual medium, I tend to talk more about inspirations. I try to be more. I get a little more personal in some personal stories. This morning, there was a SoundCloud post that I recorded about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I got so frustrated with it, I just didn't do anything with it because I had like a block. It wouldn't post it. But this morning, because I erased some of the older ones, I went on I had to go. Of course, you have to go onto open up the app on your laptop. There's some things you just can't do with apps as much as we like to do things with the apps on the phone. But you have to access it with the actual website on your laptop. And I actually deleted some of the old things, and so I just posted a latest the latest thing. Well, I would say how late it is, but how latest it is because it's now 3 weeks old, but it's still a valid story. It's actually and so it has a lot more of my inspirational things. And I don't mean by inspirational, I don't necessarily mean religious. I mean things where whenever I went through a tough time, and things what got me through, and things that might help you get through, and just things, interesting tidbits that come in my mind that I can record something. And I'm trying to be better in terms of not being more specific, not just having, and also trying to do that with my videos too, is not trying to have a video where I'm doing makeup and I'm talking about a whole bunch of other stuff. I'm like going to say, okay, I'm going to do a makeup video, or I'm going to do just a chat video, or I'm going to do this and do this and do this, and try to be more specific. And the same thing with the SoundClouds. I'm just going to maybe share one story and then share why I feel it's important, and then that's that. And so, I'm learning. I'm doing the best I can. I'm seeing what works and what doesn't. So, anyway, I thank you for tuning in. And this time, I've got my hair color's fresh, and I just did a full. I'm just sort of like in casual mode today. Casual Friday, I guess. But casual Friday when you work from home means like super, super casual. So, um, but I just doing the messy bun but I don't know, I was in the mood to do some full glam makeup, so that's what I did. I'm going to be discussing this today is some news, some really cool news that's been happening. My husband was an extra in a movie, upcoming movie, kind of like an independent film that's made for PBS, but they're going to have the premiere in DC on November the 12th at the Lisner Auditorium. So you can get tickets to that. It's called The Sultan and the Saint. And he was actually just more like an extra. But I don't know if you know this, but in movies sometimes they'll have the same actors can play different types of extras depending on their costumes, and especially in period pieces. Like at one scene, he's an extra on, and the whole movie is about the St. Francis of Assisi and the Crusades. So on one hand, some of the extras are doing the whole they're like on the Christian side, and they're got those uniforms on and those helmets on, and then later the same extras are used for to be on the Muslim side. And so it's kind of interesting because really as an actor you're actually playing all sides if you're an extra. So but it looks like they have the trailer out. I'm going to post the trailer to my Facebook page. Those of you who are personal friends, I'll post it on the my personal page as well as my public BibaGirrrl page, and I will also tweet it out. And as well as I'll probably do some screenshots of the logo, and I may put it on my Instagram and just put with a link so my Instagram followers can see that there. But I mean, he's not in a major role, but it is a cool production, and it's I would say of the things he's been in, it's probably the most. Well, he's done some ID discovery shows, but those are when they're on. And once unless you're like a real big fan of obsessing over each individual ID discovery shows, unless you go on the website can you go back and say, oh, I'm going to see these episodes. But because it's a PBS show, it's a wider range, and it was a really cool opportunity for him as an actor, because it was a real big production, and it's amazing knowing what I know happened behind the scenes. The kinds of things that went on, like how they built the sets and where it was filmed, and how when you see the trailer, it's pretty amazing because you really are going back 1,000 years or so to the Crusades time, and you really feel like it's the Middle East, and you really feel like how it's done is, and as well as Europe, and the way they filmed it, you really feel like they're in a castle, or they really feel like they're you're in that time period. But it really it's in a warehouse. A lot of more warehouses in Baltimore. So the name of the show is called The Sultan and the Saint. Like I said, I'm going to be putting out the previews, but when it is aired, I'm also going to post about that too. So that's pretty exciting. And if you want to follow my husband, he doesn't post as much, but a lot of it is me. Yeah, I'm kind of in charge of his things, but sometimes he tweets stuff out and he puts stuff on his acting page, which is Patrick Opitz. And at PJ Opitz on Twitter. Then there are times where I kind of we sort of alternate, where I post pictures of him and tweet stuff out when he's too busy. So we sort of share his accounts, and so there's that. That's pretty exciting. And I had talked about him being in Dark Awakenings too. That's actually gotten pushed back till more like 2017. So probably that won't get released till probably until the next, maybe even towards the end of 2017. So kind of, I'm excited for that to happen, but there was so much build up in 2015, like when we got to go to cons, and I got to go in through the VIP and get to go and he did all the Q&As with the first Dark Awakenings, and that was really exciting. So, but it's like you kind of wish you could keep up that momentum. So it was like, wow, okay, he's at the Q&As this time, and he'll be a big star next year. And then 2016 happens, and we're still doing the same stuff. So, but anyway, so I just want to give you an update on that. So that's called The Sultan and the Saint, and it'll be on PBS. Um, and I'll find out the air date on that, and I'll get back to you on that. So this past, actually, it ends up being a whole month, but it's been New York Fashion Week in New York, but it actually ends up being a week and a half, which ends up being 2 weeks. It's really exciting. A lot of designers. I have a good friend of mine who not only does he teach at Parsons, but he also teaches at FIT. He's a professor. Um, and he's also a photographer, and he's been involved with the fashion shows and Fashion Week for at least 2 decades. And so it was kind of crazy because he's there in New York. He lives in New York, and he at first I thought, oh, this is kind of he sometimes FaceTimes me, and we have a lot of fun chatting together. And my phone rang and saw there was a FaceTime from him, and then I couldn't. It was a bad time for me. I was in the middle of cooking dinner, and so I just sent him a text. Oh, I'll call you back in an hour. But an hour later, it wasn't. He didn't answer, and I thought this is strange. And the next thing I know is the next morning at around like 9:15, my phone goes off again with the FaceTime from him, and then I realized, okay, he'd be in class teaching right now. This is a mistake. He's accidentally butt dialing FaceTiming. Which is like something you usually think of butt dialing, regular dialing, but butt dialing FaceTiming is pretty crazy. So then the next night, the next day, that evening of that second day, my phone rang again, and I actually did answer it, and I could hear in the background he was at a fashion show, and I was like, "Hello, hello, do you know, are you there? Are you there?" And he wasn't there. He didn't even know what he was doing, but I could hear it was a fashion show. So then I sent him a text saying, are you aware that you're butt dialing me from Fashion Week? And he's like, yeah. He's like, oh my God, that's so funny. Da da da. And he sends me some pictures of where he was, and I said, this is all. I said, this is, just rub it in that I'm not there, and drop it in and I always joke that my invite was lost in the mail, just like I joke around about the Met Ball and the Emmys and all that stuff. So, and he's like, well, I'm just waiting because I'm doing some pictures for Teen Vogue, and yeah, because sometimes he does some freelance photography work for different publications. So, and I was just like, oh, I don't want to hear it because it must be nice. But just at one point I had a fork in my life where I could have gone in this direction, and he had a fork in his life where he went in that direction, and our forks just completely went in other directions. But it was very hard because the choices that I kept making took me away from some of my core interests for a long time, or it incorporated some of my interests, like staying in the DC area and becoming a hairstylist. I was working with fashion, and I sometimes worked on some fashion shows, but it was nowhere near the same of actually like living, going to school in New York and living in New York and being a total part of that scene. So he's sort of like my real link to that world, besides just from being an observer from watching, the Fashion Police or Project Runway, or at one point he actually worked with Tim Gunn. At one point my friend launched his own line for a couple of seasons in the early 2000s, and so got to go to one of his Fashion Week fashion shows. So that was really exciting back then. That was in 2003. So it's amazing to have a friend that sort of like that world and being able to find out what's happening. He always talks about designers that I've never even heard of or who's up and coming, and so that's like sort of my link to it. And so that was kind of fun. It was like, oh my god! And I'm hearing voices, and he's tweeting me texting me pictures about, of some behind the scenes pictures of some racks and pictures of this, and he'll post pictures that he actually takes of people on the runways and things, and so it was pretty cool, pretty cool. But another thing I want to talk about with Fashion Week is that there was a lot of body positivity things that happened this time. It was much more inclusive. To the two major things that stood out. Now, I've talked about Christian Siriano before. He did the dress for Leslie Jones, which was wonderful. He stepped up there. He always stepped up with Christina Hendricks. This time for his spring 2017 show, he had 5 plus-size models on the runway with regular size models, which I don't know if you've been watching my past videos way, for the past year. That was something I said that was like almost like a dream come true. I was saying we shouldn't have two separate types of fashion shows. It's wonderful to actually for his, he does have with Lane Bryant a specific plus size line. He's actually been brilliant in the fact that he has a deal with Payless. He has a deal with Lane Bryant with designing plus size clothes, as well as his own couture line, and this was showing his couture line with, say, the thin regular, what I would call fashion model, regular model sizes, along with plus size models, and the plus size models had a range too. They weren't all just like size 10s, size 12, size 16s that were like, they were a range. Because sometimes when the designers will do something for plus size, they'll only show a size 10 girl, or they'll only show a size 12 girl model. But this time you actually had a range of some were super curvy, and some were smaller than others, but it actually showed a range. So a regular woman at home who was looking at clothes going, okay, I'm not that thin, but actually I have hips, and that dress could actually look good on me. Or I'm bigger than she is, but actually, oh no, here's another model coming down here. She looks like me. Oh, here's another model. Wow. I don't have those curves, but that dress could look good on me. So it actually showed that the fashionable colors, the colors that he's trying to show for spring, the designs, what he's actually, his vision for his line, for that high-end line, could work on all different body shapes. And it looked really great. I love the aqua. He had a really pretty aqua. He had shoes. He had like a coral color and black and white, and just phenomenal. And I've said before in other videos, I kind of have, not only have I been following him since Project Runway, but because I knew he worked in the hair world, and I worked for a salon, the chain of salons that he actually worked at before he was into fashion, and we were both did the same hair competition at the same time. And so he was at another location, Annapolis, and I was at the Bethesda location, but we were at the same function at the same time, and I actually met a lot of people he worked with. I don't remember meeting him per se, but because he has that background, he's from the same state, worked for the same company, was at the same event that I was, and to see that, and also when he started out so young, that was so significant because he was the youngest winner, and it showed that no matter how young you are and how different you are, you can follow your dreams. And I believe that the same thing with when you're getting older, there should be no age limit. I've always said that about finding love. There's no age limit on finding love. You keep trying, you can find, the right new love in your life. You might not, say the right Mr. Right or Mrs. Right or whatever, but you can, and I believe the same thing with careers, and that there's just, the world is open now, and the old rules are starting to fall down. And I think he's a great example, especially with this whole adding the plus size models and the whole range of different size models in his show. So that was like, oh my God, this is actually happening right now. It didn't just happen. It didn't take 10 years from me saying that, because usually those who know me personally, sometimes I'll say stuff 10, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and people are like, oh, you're crazy, you're just crazy, that'll never happen, da, da, da. Well, here's something I said 6 months ago, boom, he made it happen. So, shout out to Christian Siriano. If you follow me on Twitter, I post, I retweet a lot of his stuff, because as a fashion fan, I like what he has done about making his designs accessible at every level. So not only has he made it accessible at every level, from Payless to Lane Bryant to his store to his couture line, but he's also made it accessible for a wide range of sizes and ages and all that good stuff. So it's like multiple levels there. So that's really cool. So another thing that was cool was Ashley Graham walked in the I hope I say this name right. She walked in the BibaGirrrl runway, Garung, however you say it, but it was a lingerie show, and Ashley Graham was with other, when you say plus size curvy models, but this was a lingerie show, so it was, you saw everything, no airbrushing, because that's one thing with those of us in the plus size community, or I would say the plus size bloggers, plus size, say body positivity influencers, however you want to say it. The biggest issue is we don't see ourselves. Even if we see a plus size model modeling lingerie or modeling an outfit, the cellulites airbrushed, stomachs are airbrushed, or skin texture is airbrushed, so that we're still saying, well, they're plus size, but they're pretty perfect. And here she was showing that, well, yes, she's a beautiful girl, but she was showing that there's cellulite there. She was showing that, her thighs were moving, but her body looked great. And our whole view of what would say this would be the only, someone other than that, someone super thin, or someone who didn't have a fleshy look, or wasn't voluptuous, that wouldn't be thought of as fashion or on the runway. But it was a major deal to show that, for one thing, she really showed off the lingerie. That BibaGirrrl, I'm sure BibaGirrrl is going to be selling a lot of lingerie from the way Ashley Graham looked in that lingerie, as well as the other models, because that actually showed that we can look at their bodies and say, this is how our bodies will look. And this made me want to go out and buy that lingerie. And that should be, the dollar signs is what money talks. And if the fashion world can see that our buying power means a lot, and there's more of us than there are of the people who are like 6 foot tall and 110 and still telling them to starve and whatever, and live on cigarettes and whatever they're doing, there's more of us who have the power to say this line is going to be a success versus that line versus this. And we are, the times are changing, and I hope that these lines are really, people start to pay attention, and more designers will say, hey, say Michael Kors or Calvin Klein or any other many other mainstream designers will say, it's time for me to include plus size women, women above a 12, women above a 14, women on to 24, 28, 32, whatever. We see that this is important, and their dollars and their opinions on fashion is important. And we had Ashley Mill-Timpton, who had won Project Runway last year, who she was the first plus size designer. She did for them to actually not just a designer, but her clothes were, because sometimes they've had plus size people in there, but they're still designing clothes for the, staying within traditional model size. But all her clothes were fitting for a plus size person. So she now has a line with JCPenney, and she had her show this past week, and so that was really exciting too, to see that. And her models were arranged too, and it was really exciting to see. It was an outdoor fashion show, and I watched it live, and it was really exciting to see the colors, and to see that the choices in the models, and just like when Christian Siriano did his line for Lane Bryant, it's very important to be able to see ourselves, and to be able to see that, like to say, well, I'm not the only one who has these arms. I'm not the only one that has these thighs. I'm not the only one that has this butt. I'm not the only one that has these curves. I'm not the only one whose chest bounces when we walk. Even no matter how much support we have, we're going to have a little bit of bounce. But it's wonderful to see that on the runway, and to see that, hey, they're still rocking fashion and they still look really good. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about today. To me, I feel like this is really significant. These are really significant changes, and so I feel like hopefully we can just go from here. And I'm just really excited for this. And then, the other thing was Tim Gunn in the Washington Post this past Sunday with him done. And at first I saw this article online in a lot of places. I hadn't even paid attention that it was the Washington Post, but then we happened to get last Sunday's Post, and there was the article, and I was able to read it, and I was really glad that Tim Gunn also spoke out about the industry and how they've just been neglecting women, and beyond a certain size, and it's just there's just so much that's involved with when you go shopping anyway. Any woman. I've spent 33 years talking to women in my job and doing hair. And the hardest thing is, even the smaller sizes have a hard time buying jeans. Even the smaller sizes have a tough time finding a dress for a wedding. They don't have as tough a time as plus size women, but fashion and shopping is finding, the average woman has clothes they wear to work, they have clothes they wear on the weekends, we have clothes we go out for special occasions, and many times we need to find those things that really work well for us on a regular basis. So yes, fashion on the runway is fantasy, and it takes a creative person to go, well, I see that fantasy, but how am I going to incorporate this in my regular life? Maybe I might take one idea from that runway, or I might take one idea from that outfit. But so many people just look at that, the drama or the fantasy outfit on the runway, and think, oh, that's too weird, I can't even relate to that. But sometimes it's just an essence. Sometimes it's just a feeling. And so the one thing is I think that, as I feel like fashion, whether it's designers, whether it's buyers, whether it's retail, even it's online retail, they have to be more aware of how things are, the fit, and as well as, because I've always said that when you shop for a man, which in men's fashion, now it's only been recently that a lot of times that they have different cuts of clothing, but for a long time it was, I would go shopping, because I would go shopping with, boyfriends, or first husband, and now my second husband. I would help them find clothes, and I always said, it's amazing how a man with any size, within a certain range of neck, they can have they go by the neck, they go by the length of sleeve, they go by the length of pants, and they go by the waist. Now, if the average woman could go into a store and say, this is my neck range, this is my waist, this is my length of pants, this is this, these are this, and it's more, granted, it's more utilitarian. There isn't as much variety. But they can go into their department and unless they're like bigger than what the largest standard. But within a certain range, they can go in and go, okay, here's a shirt, here's a pair of pants, try it on, da da da. It works. And I used to say that we as women will never be truly liberated from worrying, and obviously men don't have as much pressure. Of course, there is more pressure now about being in shape or whatever, but you could there's still a range. A guy could have, not be in 100% shape, but still be able to go into the Macy's and be able to get a shirt and dress pants for work. And not be made to feel like there's something wrong. That, you can just, if you try it on, it works, it fits. So I have always felt that women's sizes they're always such a big discrepancy from what does, say one designer size 8 versus another designer size 8 versus, and it's just that one size. It doesn't go by your waist, it doesn't go by your arm width, it doesn't go by, petites help, but many petites go by assuming that if you're petite, you're very small, or even plus size petites, they assume that you're built a different way. What I find with many plus size clothes, they assume that a person's taller and boxier. And my shoulders, my width of my shoulders are actually smaller than many women who are plus size. And because of that, everything always needs to be taken up about 3 to 4 inches, even in petites, because the way that it's cut. Petites help, but there's always certain things, and other places will be too tight. So anything that's worked for me is always when I've had to have things custom made, or buying things and still either having them taken in or tailored, or tailor it myself. And so the best time for me was when I was making a lot of my own clothes. And that can happen, but we're all busier now than we used to be. And, who has the time for that? And so a lot of times we just want to be able to go in and get a shirt, or you want to get a pair of pants, and not be made to feel that. So I found that in talking to many women, a whole range of different sizes, that they have a lot of the same problems. Sometimes some will say, well, when you incorporate plus sizes, not every size. It doesn't mean not all size 16s are equal. Some are bustier than others. Some are curvier than others. Some have a more boxy or rounder shape. There's like a very different shapes. But the thing is that that's the case with all women. I know women who are size 4s who aren't curvy, and I know size 4s who are curvy. I know size 8s that are boxy, and I know size 8s that are curvy, and I know size 8s that are totally straight, and some that are rounder. That, all of our bodies are a little different. So I think something really has to be done with how, for basic things. I mean, of course, dresses, dressy suits, that you have to, it helps to have things to be able to fit the body, but there are many times where when you're going in to get jeans, and you're going into, it's now getting a little bit better when they're saying, this is this kind of cut, this is this kind of cut, this is, say, the bootleg versus straight leg versus, the boyfriend style, which are baggier, which is this. But then, a size 14 petite may fit different than a size 14 regular. Well, if the size 14 regular fits better and you're a petite, you still have to get those hemmed. And so, they have all those kinds of criteria. Or the size 14 tall. There are many who are taller who, the tall still aren't tall enough. And there are many of us petites sometimes I buy petites and they end up being too short. So I end up buying regular and then having to hem it because the petites end up being more like capris on me. So my legs are, just kind of in between. So a lot of those issues. So I think that one thing I've noticed with men's fashion, with there's a set of standards of measurements where there's the measurements themselves, and they can just buy clothes based on their measurements, and it's not as big of an issue. So if we can just buy clothes based on our measurements, as opposed to, say, but going by a size, then if you go up a size or whatever, it doesn't seem as big of a deal as to say, oh no, I can't, I was an 8, I can't be that 10, I can't wear these 10s, oh no, I'm a 12, oh no, but I'm going to hang on to my 8s, and we shouldn't be caught up on that number. So anyway, just a little food for thought. I don't know how that could ever happen, but I think, if there is some utilitarian styles, let's say, whether it's just button-down shirts or dress pants or certain things or certain blouses or certain jackets, certain things it would make our lives a lot easier if we had those kinds of things were based on our measurements and not just the certain size, because then you could be more exact and you could say, okay, I know this line, this fits this way and this fits that way, and I can just go here and be able to grab these pants and just try them on. No, oh, they fit, and then you can leave and you don't have as big of a hassle. So, because that's how most of the men in my life have been, they were able to get what they needed and leave, and the world is very busy. And I don't know how many, there are a lot of online shopping sites, and I don't know how many women are doing that, because unless they know that they have gone to a store and they know that certain line, how that line fits them, and then they order from that brand from an online outlet. But for me, I have to try on everything. And I've seen many people complain about, especially women who are, say, size L to XL or 12 to 14 to 16. I've had at least 5 friends complain in the last month where they were ordering things online, and the online store, when they got the clothes, where what was considered an XL was actually what we would consider a small or a medium by American standards, and so they were going by some other country's standards of sizing, and they were like, I'm so sick of this, and we just, and all the friends just had to comment and saying, well, if you're going to order this, these are the ones that run this way, and these are ones like this, and these are the brands, but it's very frustrating. So anyway, let me know, give me some comments, let me know if you had any issues with ordering online, let me know what brands you like, whatever size you are, enjoy it, appreciate your body, love your body, respect yourself, feel good about yourself, feel good that it brought you here to this moment, and you can, and it's going to help you move forward. So I hope you have a great weekend. Take care, and I'll be back next week. Thanks so much. Bye.